Kia ora tātou katoa, welcome along to another episode of Beyond the Hustle, and it's my pleasure today to be able to welcome two guests. First one, my sister Māia Gooday, and Tom Gooday, her husband, my brother-in-law. So no mai haere mai, welcome along to the podcast.
Kia ora, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Kia ora everyone. Pleasure to be on here.
So we're going to cover off a couple of different kaupapa today over the next hour or so. But why don't you start, first of all, by just telling everyone, the audience, a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with you, Tommy.
Awesome. So my name's Tom. I was born in Linwood, Christchurch. I've just turned 31. I grew up with two brothers, both older, so I was the baby of the family. And I went to a small school in Linwood, just off Fitzgerald called Christchurch East. Was there up until high school. Then went to Shirley Boys High. The mighty Shirley Boys.
Mighty Shirley Boys.
Yeah. Played multiple sports growing up, mainly rugby and cricket, and then diversed into just cricket and football when I hit high school. Yeah.
Awesome. You're managing our airport store. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Yes, so I managed the Fush Wigram store for, I want to say coming up 4 or 5 years before we managed to get the spot in the airport in the domestic lounge. So if you're flying domestically, come say hi. We're in the jet lounge, but yeah, we took over a small pop-up in July on the 1st, and while our permanent site was being built, about 3 months there, the place was built, and we've been in there for almost 9 weeks. I think 9 weeks this week.
How's it going?
It's been going awesome.
Yeah. There's been a few things that have been quite unexpected for me, but what's been the most unexpected thing, good or bad for you, working in the airport?
I would say from a sort of sales point of view, every day is different. You have a delay for 45 minutes and you get absolutely slammed, or you can have delays where it's 8 hours long and you're slammed the whole day. Yeah. So every day is different. It's wild, and you see a huge amount of different cultures coming through, different people who are here for holidays. They're here for working for short periods of time. It's really interesting to see the different dynamic of humans that come through the airport. It's wild.
Awesome. Thanks, Tommy. And Maz?
A little bit about me.
Let's first of all just address the fact that it's you and I only speak Māori to each other.
Yes, normally.
So this is kind of weird.
It is.
It's uncomfortable.
It is. It feels really odd, actually.
But I think for the purpose of the podcast, it's worth us speaking, having a conversation, having a kōrero in English. But if I divert back into Māori and fall into my old habits, just apologies in advance.
Sure, give you a nudge. Yeah, just okay, all good. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I was actually just thinking before, it's been really good to have Jess on the podcast because it's made it super, super clear to everybody that we're actually brother and sister, not husband and wife, because there have been countless times where people have just assumed that we're married, and it's made for really awkward meetings and awkward waka jobs and just general awkward encounters. So it's been really great having Jess on the podcast to sort of explain that to everybody.
That is good. I have to say, you guys getting married was also helpful because it meant that you were no longer Māia Matthews.
Yeah.
So that kind of eliminated most of it, but there's still been a few. I think people just assume, you know.
Yeah, they do assume.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's been a few times where you've just let them. You've just gone with it
because it's I'm in too deep, and by that point, it's too awkward to sort of say. Actually, I should have told you this before.
So now it's awkward.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's on me.
It's on you, 100%. Because I'm always very quick to be like, she's my sister. You know.
But now it's sort of clear to the audience listening today that we are brother and sister, so that's good.
Okay, well that's good. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, if I were following the same sort of template that Tom's gone with, I was born in Israel. That's a funny story, but obviously our father was peacekeeping for the United Nations, so we spent about a year over there, and that's where I ended up being born. Moved back to New Zealand in '97 and have been here ever since. So, proud wahine Māori. Our iwi is Te Raroa, so up in far north. We don't get a lot of time to go back there super often, unfortunately, but when we do, it's always really special. Proud raukura, proud graduate of Kura Kaupapa Māori. Also attended Villa Maria in my high school years, where I met some incredible people who I still keep in touch with today, some of my best friends and bridesmaids from Villa. And have been in hospo since I was working at Villa, since I was attending Villa. So I think almost coming up 12 years now that I've been working in hospo.
You were 16 when you got, or 15 when you got started?
15, 16. I think it was 2013, early 2013. So I was in year 12. That was my first job, and have been in hospo ever since. That was out at Joe's Garage in Sumner. which funnily enough, Tom and I joke, we think we've probably met each other before because he was playing cricket for Sumner and we were one of their major sponsors.
Yeah,
So,
and you guys used to come in every Saturday before the game,
Yeah.
often. Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely you would have met.
yeah, which is pretty
We all would have met.
Yeah.
Didn't connect the dots until later
Yeah.
on.
Absolutely. If we could look back at the cameras, I probably served you a couple of
Yeah.
spates in
I
your
was probably
time.
stumbling around 3 jugs deep somewhere.
Absolutely.
Before the game? We'll talk about that.
Yeah, spent a lot of time out in Sumner and then moved to Joe's Garage in Wigram when that opened, and have just been hanging around in Hosp ever since then. And yeah, opened a couple of businesses together with you and Jess and now Tom. And yeah, Tom and I got married almost 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
Goes
time
fast.
flies. Yeah,
Yeah,
really
way too
flies.
Yeah.
And a proud mama to Te Kahu Kairangi, a 1.5-year-old.
And we'll talk about that as well and explore how parenthood has been for you, because he's now over a year. How old is he now?
Yeah, 18 months.
18
so a
months.
year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting to talk about how that's gone.
Yeah,
Cool.
not as keen a cricketer as Tom.
Yeah,
But-
no, that's probably
He's a
good.
runner though,
He is.
and you're now a runner, so we'll talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit later on as well if we get some time.
No, it's probably a good thing he's not much of a cricketer because I am not a good supporter of cricket.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather be playing.
Okay.
I'm too, I don't know, I think it's like my competitive side.
Yeah.
I just can't watch my own team play knowing that I could be out there.
Okay. Okay, well, look, I mean, there's lots there. We could start anywhere, really. But, Tommy, if you don't mind, I know you've been really open in the past talking about some of your experiences and I guess even some of your struggles with mental health. You've been really open about talking about gambling and addiction and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't mind starting there, if that's all right with you, and be really
100%.
keen to hear a little bit about your journey, especially around addiction, gambling. Can you tell me a little bit about when you realized that you had an addiction?
Yep, 100%. I think sort of the whole addiction mantra starts at an earlier age, in a sense. I've always had an addictive personality, more or less to sport or just anything that I enjoy doing. But it's one of those things that when you turn 18 and all your mates are like getting on the beers and going down to the pub and having a cigarette or all those things that you can do when you turn 18, you're aware of them. And for me, I'd always had a problem with, I guess, trying to fit in with the crowds. So I was always trying to fit in with different groups to make them like me. And I guess with most of my friend circle, part of fitting in was going down and getting some beers and going to the bar, buying a pack of cigarettes, going on the pokies, all that sort of jazz. But to sort of fast forward, I don't think I realised I had a problem, probably more or less until Māia mentioned it to me and mentioned that she thought I had a problem. But looking back on it, because when I did have moments where I was sitting in the pokey room and I would sort of look around and I'd have to think, what am I doing? What's going on here? Like all these people around me, like no one's talking to each other. It's not a very social environment. This actually isn't that enjoyable. And it was more or less came back to my father and losing dad. It was something that he did a lot of. And it's something I did a little bit of, but it was sort of my place to go to be with dad. It was like, in a sense, it was like going to visit him, but I wasn't in the same sense. It was sort of my escape. It was a way to put on a mask and just sort of be on my own for a bit. And obviously what it caused, huge damage to our relationship, a lot of trust issues. But I think the biggest key was the sort of lies and all of that built up to a point where Māia, when she did realise, she was able to just instantly nip it in the butt and say, hey, you need to make a decision here. It's either me or the gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest thing was I can't remember exactly when it was, but I remember we were in bed and Māia said you need to call the helpline.
So there's a couple of things that you picked up on. I guess, first of all, recognising that you had a really addictive personality but initially you were addicted to sport. So it probably served you quite well, right? In the beginning, because it's, okay, addictive personality means what? In the context of sport, what does addictive personality mean, do you think?
For me, just being very competitive, not wanting to lose, wanting to do whatever it took to win a game of footy, cricket, anything really. It was, and I guess the addictive personality, when the drinking and the alcohol and the drugs and all that sort of came in, it's very much a sport orientated thing here. Like a lot of people play social sports on the weekend because they get on the booze at the end of the night and socialise, and it's that sort of New Zealand binge drinking mentality that, you know, we're very competitive on the field, but we also enjoy ourselves a bit too much off the field as well.
So looking back on it, you recognise that you had an addictive personality, always addicted to just whatever it took to win the game or get the try or score the runs or whatever. And then later on, as these influences like alcohol and smoking and gambling become available to you, start pouring energy into those things and become addicted to things that are not so good for your health and well-being.
100%.
Yeah. Right. And I guess you also mentioned that it wasn't until Māia discovered that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Maz? How did you first become aware of it?
I can't sort of pinpoint a time exactly where I became aware of it. I think it was more sort of, by this time, Tom and I had been working together at Joe's and at Fush for a couple of years in LA. And so I knew the hours that he was working. I knew his pay rate. And we weren't married. We hadn't combined our bank accounts or anything yet, but I knew roughly what he was making per week. And we'd get to the end of the week and I'd say, should we go and do something? And he'll go, I don't have any money. And I would sort of go, how do you not have any money? You work 60 hours a week. How do you have time to spend your money? And it was sort of, I never really discovered it, but it was sort of putting 2 and 2 together to work out, like, where is all this money going? And there were a few excuses, I suppose. You would say you had a phone bill, or you had to pay a mate back for something. And there were a few bits and pieces that just weren't adding up. And I would sort of question you about them, and you'd say, nah, I'll have more next week. I just had a lot of bills this week. And things were just seeming a bit dodgy to me. And so I think I remember asking you, can you show me your bank statement or something? Yeah. And there were never any transactions at the pokies or at the casino, but there were heaps of cash outs. And it was sort of like, why are you getting 150 cash out at New World Wigram? Yeah. So I suppose you sort of had your methods for hiding it, which you'd show me and go, see, I haven't been gambling. I haven't been at the pokers. I haven't been at the pub. Look, there's nothing here for any of the pubs that I normally go to. And I was sort of like, I can't figure it out, what's going on. And then there was that point in time where you said, look, here's the truth. I've actually been getting cash out because I've been saving to buy you something special. Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay, that's amazing. And then obviously in time, it all came out in the wash. And that's when I put 2 and 2 together. And it was back and forth for a wee while. Tell me the truth. And then eventually, I suppose, would you say you cracked and you sort of explained, I guess, that is the truth.
In a sense, hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
What was the thing that you, because I mean, I know the answer, but what was the thing that you were telling Māia that you were saving for?
Yeah, so it was I guess that compulsive lie that just keeps building and building to a point where you have to almost live the lie. You have to carry it on just to make things work. But it was saving for an engagement ring, which actually wasn't happening. It was being poured down the drain. Māia sort of knows that now. I used to catch up with a friend every Wednesday. We used to have a beer. We used to throw 20 in the pokies. And I used to say, I think it was all the winnings that I got was what would go into the kitty for that. And he was looking after that. So apologies to him.
Yeah, I think it was because I would say to you, show me the cash.
Yeah.
Show it to me. And you'd go, oh, my mate's got it.
Yeah.
And and it was just a lot of, you were doing well to cover it up. But then when it kept happening, I sort of had to say, I have to be honest with you. Yeah. Like, I need to see it to believe it because it doesn't seem right. And I confided in you, Anton, quite a lot in that time, and Jess, and I sort of remember saying, am I going crazy, or what is going on? And I remember us having some pretty deep conversations and you saying, look, we're here to support you, but I think you need to have some tough conversations with him. And so we did. And
it must have been really hard, really tough conversations to have. I mean, I if I had to sit down and have a conversation like that about Jess, I mean, the first time you say it, it must be really uncomfortable. Because if you're wrong, you must be thinking, like, if I've got this wrong, I'm going to fuck this whole thing up. Yeah. So it must be really tough conversations to have.
Yeah.
Especially because I was accusing you of lying.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So I guess from my perspective, I think I handled it as well as I could have, despite knowing that I'd been lying the whole time. Like, I was very, I guess, honest about being like, yep, okay, I do have a problem. And I think one thing I always tell people now that I've been through it is I always refer back to one of Bliss and Esso's songs, which is the first step to a problem is admitting you've got one. And I think that was the coolest thing that Māia did, was actually getting me to say, I have a gambling problem. And that was also something that I did at therapy, was them actually getting me to say, hey, I've got a gambling problem, and being really open to people about it.
Yep.
And saying, hey, I've got a gambling addiction. This is what's going on. And a lot of the staff knew very early on that I was starting to seek help. So that made it easier because it took the weight off my shoulders. And it meant that everyone who was around me that had to work with me knew what I was going through.
Knew that every Wednesday you had to
Yeah.
be gone by 3 because you had your appointment at 3:30 or whatever.
So tell us about how that whole process goes. So far, there's been a bit of lying, been a bit of gambling. You've got your suspicions. You've hit them up. You've come clean.
Yep.
And gone, yep, the whole thing's a lie.
Yep.
I've got a problem. What happens next? How do you begin to, once you've admitted, yep, I've got a problem, that must be really hard for you to accept, but you start to look for solutions. Where do you go from there?
Probably wouldn't even say that. That first time that we sat down and had a conversation about it was not the last time.
Yeah.
Were you probably, I mean, I don't know if relapse is the correct word, but, you know,
Old
we would have
habits
had
die
this,
hard.
yeah, we would have had
Yeah.
this conversation. And I don't even think,
It would have been a couple of months, I'd say.
yeah, but I don't even think you admitted that you had a problem
Yeah.
that first time we had a
Yeah,
chat.
it's
You were
probably
like,
true, yeah.
it's not happening, it's not happening. There was a lot of denial.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, all good. I trust you.
Yeah.
You've told me there's nothing happening. Let's move on. And I sort of kept an eye on it because I wanted to trust you, but it didn't sit right with me. And so it was like, okay, I do trust you, all good, but I'm going to keep an eye on this. And then it probably wasn't until the third time that we had the conversation.
Yeah.
And it was actually, I don't remember what sparked the conversation, but
Yeah.
whatever it was, like you said, I think I must have finished work and we were getting ready for bed and something must have happened. And I said, I don't believe you. We're calling. And I'm not qualified at all to deal with something like this. An addiction, and I didn't know what to do. But I said, I just Googled, what do you do for someone with a gambling addiction, you know? And then there were these helplines that came up and I said, let's call one of them and find out.
Yeah.
And I think when we called them, you were still probably partially in denial. You hadn't even realized that you did have an addiction until you actually met with your therapist.
What were they like to deal with? Because I can imagine calling a helpline for the first time must be pretty scary, daunting, embarrassing. I don't know, what were you feeling that first phone call?
I guess I was probably very nervous, but they were very accepting, I guess, because that's what they do.
Sure.
And I remember the first meeting I had, they basically sat me down and asked me a whole lot of questions about my gambling issues. And they sort of go through, and a lot of those questions are around like how much you're spending.
Right.
And at the time I remember thinking, I'm only spending this much, I'm only spending this much. And then they sort of compile that all up and they show you how much you've wasted or how much you've been doing. But I remember one of the reasons she said, one of the first questions she asked was, why do you want to come and get help? And I said, I've been lying to my partner for the last, I don't know how many years. It would have been maybe 2 years, which is a very long time to keep a lie.
Yeah. Do you remember that? Do you remember feeling like the pressure of that lie? Did you ever think about this is, I'm interested to know, when you're in that moment, do you ever think about one day this is all going to come out?
Yeah.
And like, what the fuck is that going to look like?
Yeah,
did that ever come to mind?
I think it did, but at the same time, I think things were just moving so fast you forget about it.
Right.
I managed to go 2 years and not really remember much of it. Is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And then you were also in denial that you had a problem.
Yeah.
And so you were lying and saying, the reason I don't have money is because of this.
Yeah.
But it's actually because I've got this gambling problem, which you didn't think you had. But tomorrow you're going to go back and win it all anyway. So, and then it's not going to be a problem.
And winning it back, right? That's the old...
Yeah.
There must have been in the back of your mind, like, one day I'm going to win this all back and no one ever has to find out.
Yeah, it can just get swept under the rug. It won't even be a problem because I don't have money this Friday for dinner.
Yeah.
But when I go back on Saturday and I win it all back, Māia she'll be none the wiser. She won't even realize because I've got money this week like I told her I would have. And so I think a lot of the time it wasn't even the gambling that was the problem. It was just the lie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have cared if it was if you were drinking or gambling, whatever. It wasn't the addiction that was hurting me. It was the fact that you were lying to me. And I think anybody that's going through something like that, often it is actually just the mistrust that hurts the most.
Yeah, I
more
think
than the
that's
actual
the biggest
addiction.
thing that we could probably take from this is that it's not necessarily the problem, but it's the flow-on effects from the problem. So the lies, the distrust that you gain from someone.
But yeah, it's sort of compounds and then it affects other parts of our life, because when you say to me, I've got cricket training tonight, I'm questioning that every single time. I'm like, does he have cricket training or is he actually at the pub gambling? And then I'm like, do I drive past the park and check if he's at training? And I'm like, no, that's breaking his trust, because I have a responsibility to trust him and he needs to feel that too. And so I can't be babying him and driving past the park and checking on him. And so, yeah, there's all those sort of things that you sort of have to swallow your pride a bit and trust that person when they say that they're going to do those things. But yeah, in the moment, very tricky.
It's, I guess in a sense, it's real. This is going to sound really weird, but I think the massive like positive to that whole shit scenario was that I think I managed to get a really good work ethic in hospitality because I was constantly playing catch up. So if I was doing a shift at Joe's in the morning, I'd pick up a shift at Fush in the afternoon because I'd be like, shit, I'm down $100 today.
Right.
I need to go pick up a shift. And some days I would have a split shift at Joe's and then Fush, and I would go to play the pokies in between the shifts. And
but then you'd say to me, I'm going to the gym. And I wouldn't question it because I was working as well.
Yeah. So it's just the compounding of those lies.
So as someone who's never had an addiction, like addiction's real, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Were you just on autopilot?
And I think anyone who's listening to me right now that potentially has an addiction, it's almost like a trance. Like you almost go into, as you say, autopilot. And there were days where I would go and blow, I don't know, $200-300, and I'd walk out of there, and it was like I'd never even walked in there. If that makes sense, like it's really strange. There were some really bad days where I was up over $1,000, and I'd walked out with what I walked in there with.
Right.
So it's just.
So even those days where you got up, it didn't even
you just, the addiction and the endorphins you get just from winning on the pokies just keeps you there. You're almost glued to your seat.
Because you always think the next time you're going to win. I didn't win this time, but I'm just going to go one more. And you sort of looked into ways that you could not necessarily check the system, but with your addictive personality, you research everything, right? And so you were like, okay, what's the best machine to play? What's the best bet? What's the best bet to make to actually win? Yeah, what's the best strategy for these things? And so there are so many positives to your addictive personality, and it is one of the things that I love about you, because you're so driven and you're so headstrong, but then it does have its negative sides as well, right? Yeah, it's
100%.
Been a real interesting thing to unpack.
It's about trying to, I guess, channel that addictive personality that you've got into something really positive, right? And this particular chapter of your life, it was being channeled into really negative things, but actually, like you said, Maz, when you direct that energy into something really positive, and I've seen it with your training, right, with your running and stuff, when you direct it into something really positive, it can have massively positive effect on your life. You touched on it earlier, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up again, but one of the, maybe the subconscious reasons that you went to the pokies was because you felt like it was a place where you could kind of go and be with your dad, who passed away in 2017. I remember the day. It was tragic. I know that growing up, he was a really massive part of your life. You talked about sports. I know he was there from what you've told me, on the sideline, mentor. It goes without saying that there must have been a really tough thing to go through. Can you tell us a little bit about the months and the weeks and the years that following the passing of your father, and maybe how you responded to it?
Yes, I think initially, I mean, the first week was kind of like that. It was kind of like a blur. Like I didn't really know what was going on. It hadn't really hit me until I was actually doing my speech at the farewell. I think that's when it sort of hit me. But I think the early stages on, I'm not too sure how or why, but I think I just clicked very early on that I had to do stuff, and it was probably from the gambling side of things and going to get help that I realized that I just need to find ulterior motives for things. So one of the big steps was moving clubs for cricket. So stepping up like the level that I was playing. I was obviously training in the gym a lot more. I was working a lot more. So I just had to find ways to keep busy and amongst all the triggers that the gambling was causing, and obviously Dad going was like really shit and fucking awful, but it, in a sense, made me realize that I've got to get on with it.
Yeah, the reason I remember the day so vividly is because it happened on Mana's birthday. And so I know, I remember getting that phone call from you, I think, Maz, really early in the morning with that shocking news that Tom's dad had passed away overnight. And I just remember thinking, what's today going to be like? This is Mana's birthday. We had some stuff planned, and I think you were on the roster. Maybe both of you were on the roster that...
I was supposed to be working that morning, yeah.
I think you were 7, I was 6:30.
Yeah.
And we got the knock on the door at 5.
That was very
5
early. Yeah, it was
I
quite
can't
early.
even remember what happened that day.
Yeah. All I remember was we were at an engagement party for my cousin the night before.
Yep.
The night had gone really smooth. Everything was cool. Mum and Dad went home as they would, just like any other social gathering. And then, yeah, the next morning, early wake up.
I remember one of the things that is really beautiful about the night that your dad passed was that we had that family gathering the night before. So literally everybody saw him.
Yeah.
Which was super nice. So he saw all his kids, he saw his nieces, his nephews, his brothers and sisters-in-law. He saw everybody that night, which was really nice because it meant that everybody had a conversation with him and chatted to him. And then obviously had a heart attack in the middle of the night. And I think the ABs were supposed to play early in the morning, maybe 3 or 4 a.m. And so his alarm went off early in the morning, and that's when your mum realised. And so she called her brother and her sister and said, I've got to tell my boys.
Yeah.
Obviously they came to us because they knew we had work early in the morning and we were the furthest away because your mum was in Shirley at the time.
Yeah.
And then Anton, our dad, had just got up to go for a walk, as he does early in the morning, and your mum knocked on the door, and I was awake, but you were asleep because I'd heard the knock, and I'm quite a light sleeper.
You were both staying at Mum and Dad's house at the time?
Yeah, so we were close to work. And I heard the knock at the door, and then Dad just goes, oh, hello, because it's not, you don't often see
someone that early.
Let alone 3 people, and it was your mum, and she just said, can you turn the light on? I've lost my husband. And I heard that. And initially I had thought that he'd gone for a walk and he didn't come back, like he was literally missing. And then obviously I realised what had happened, and Dad sort of came into our room and switched the light on. Tom, you need to get up. And it was like, no, Dad, it's all good. Like, we don't start working for another couple hours.
Yeah.
Tom, you need to get up. And it was like, what's going on? And then your uncle walks in, your mum walks in, and your auntie Chris walks in. And your Uncle Brian, he just goes, I'm so sorry, bro. Yeah. And it was just like, oh my God, what is happening? It was crazy.
It was like one of those dreams where you're like, holy shit, is this actually happening?
Yeah.
But it was in like real life, and I was just like waiting to wake up. But I was just...
And then you're safe to say Dad didn't go on his walk.
Yeah.
And we all went into the lounge, and it was sort of just like, who have you told? And it was like, no one. And so you knew as the youngest that you had to go and do this because your mum couldn't do it.
Yeah.
She was just battling with losing her husband. You had this responsibility now with your auntie and uncle, but to go and break the news to your brothers. And then, I remember like we were about to jump in the car and I said, I'll drive. And you're like, no, I'll do it. And I was like, Tom, you can't drive. You've literally just lost your dad. And you're like, I need a distraction. I'm driving. Yeah. And I was like, okay, all good. And then, obviously I had to call Anton because it was 6 o'clock by this point. I started working half an hour. Yeah. And I was like, I don't really know what to say here. I said, I'll go into work because that's what you do. I was like, you can't. Also, Anton can't because this is 2017. If you've listened to the other episodes, you know what we were going through in 2017 as a family.
The year is just a fucking write-off.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It was a terrible year for everyone that I knew.
And this is October, so we're in the thick of 2017. We're already almost $1 million in the hole as a business. You're working, Anton, stupid hours on the floor because we need to save money and wages to
and I think this was the day I was like, I'm not working this day because it's Mana's birthday.
It's not one day I'm going to have off. And so I said to you, Tom, I think I have to work because I know Anton's been asking for cover the whole week and no one can do it because, everyone's maxed out. I will come and see you later, but I need to work because there's nobody else that can work. I'll get your shift covered and I'll call Anton now and I'll explain the situation so that maybe he can come in for an hour now to help cover until we get somebody. And then I remember calling Anton, and you just like silent and shocked, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I remember these moments vividly, and like the conversations that we had. And I remember your uncle walking into the room, like those things. We laughed that I had this random memory, but you know, there's certain things that I remember really vividly and really clearly, and that morning is one of them. But then I also remember Anton saying, you're not coming into work, Māia, like, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Both of you do what you got to do. Leave the restaurants with me, we'll sort it. And then the amazing thing was the amount of staff, that sort of...
That hadn't worked for us for years. They'd finished their degrees, finished polytech nursing.
Yeah.
And they'd all come out of the hedges and just said, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was special.
Yeah.
I remember, a number of staff that had worked at Joe's or at Fush over the years and had since moved on. But we always joke about, it's like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. You're always part of the whānau. And we saw it in those moments, like when all of us needed those people, there was no hesitation.
Everyone stood up. I think we were overstaffed that day, to be honest with you.
So we went from being able to not find any cover to all of a sudden, we're overstaffed. I mean, those are pretty special moments.
It was amazing, And they were there for the rest of the week. And I remember your dad passed away on a Sunday. So
worst day in hospital.
Obviously, right? The busiest day of the week.
Worst day for Dad to go, you bastard.
And I remember putting the word out to everybody, letting everybody know, and the amount of support that you had.
Yeah.
But also, like you said, from your cricket team, like you ended up playing on Saturday because, as you say, you need distractions. You can't sit still because you just have to keep moving. And so 6 days later...
I think it was actually my debut.
No, you were at Sumner at the time because I remember you all wore black armbands, but I think you were coming towards the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I thought I was at East at that point, but no, I didn't move then.
Yeah, and you were all wearing black armbands, and you had this tribe come down to support you because everyone just wanted to be with you and support you, and cricket was your outlet for your emotions and what you were going through, and so that was really cool. And I even think you went back to work pretty quickly because you just needed to stay busy. And your dad didn't have a funeral either. He had that really lovely service because that's what he wanted. And then he was cremated. And so there wasn't, I think that was probably maybe 2 weeks where you might have taken off, if that, and then straight back into work to keep yourself busy.
Yeah, I mean, it went by really quickly, but at the same time, I was really grateful for everyone that stepped up and did their thing for me because,
I'm just looking at your arms. You've got a few tats. One of them in particular, 62 declared. I think it might be on the back. There it is.
Back of the arm.
Tell us the significance of 62 declared.
Okay, so 62 was how old Dad was.
Yeah.
Declared is the term used in cricket for when your team is batting really well. You need to have a bowl. So the idea was that I'd put it on my bowling arm, and basically it was my way of connecting with Dad in a sense and saying, right, let's go have a bowl.
Yeah.
So 62 declared is basically Dad calling it quits, but saying, go have a crack.
Beautiful. And I know that you put it on your wedding dress as well.
Yep.
Yeah, on my veil. That's right.
Yeah, it's one of our probably go-to hashtags.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's great. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. And anyone who's kind of even got a vague understanding of cricket will understand what it means. I remember your wedding, both of you, and one of the things that was really apparent to me as someone who had kind of just been on the sidelines a little bit was how proud your mates were of, I guess, the man that you've become. And obviously we've talked a little bit about today about addiction and but the growth that I've seen in the last, I don't know how long we've known each other, 10 years maybe, 8 years, something like that. From that man to the man that you are today is pretty tremendous. I think I'm certainly very proud. I know you are as well, Maz. And I saw it. Your mates were, that must have been pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, 100. It was, I've never really been one, I guess, being in a team environment majority of the time, you sort of get used to talking about the growth or the success of a team being very team based. So we're doing well, this is what we're doing well, this is our success, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the loss of Dad and the growth with Dad and my addiction and all that sort of stuff, that was all on me. I had to go and do that. And obviously, yes, I had support along the way, but I had to make the decision. I had to call the helpline. I had to go and do it. And I guess that's probably one of the biggest takings is you just got to go do it. First time's really hard. The first conversation's hard. The first time you tell someone you love is really hard. But it's just one of those things. Once you get it done, as I said, it's just like a weight off your shoulders. And it's just,
What advice would either of you have? I mean, Māia, you shared earlier on about how you didn't have a game plan. You didn't know anything about this. It was just like, Google, how do I do this? Looking back on the journey that both of you have gone on when it comes to this stuff, what advice would you share for someone else who might be going through something similar? It doesn't have to be about gambling, but any kind of type of addiction.
I would probably say the biggest thing would probably just reversing that whole keeping things to myself, letting them bottle up. I'm probably a lot more open with Māia about like certain things that trigger me, that can trigger me, but opening up and just being not afraid to say something that may spark an argument or spark something that might not sit well in her head, but just talk about things. Yeah.
What about you, Miss?
Yeah, and I suppose just ask for support as well.
Yeah.
I think it does get mentioned all the time. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but it's really true.
Yeah.
Like in so many different aspects of life, people often don't ask for help with things like they want to be independent, do it on their own sort of thing, but you have to have a village around you because everything takes a village, and having support. And I think now for us being parents, realizing how important our village is and how, you know, we've asked Mum to go and pick up from Kohanga today so that we can be here. And so I think it's so important to just be honest and ask for help. And you will get some people that will say that they're there for you and won't be there for you, but you also get the opposite. And people that will come out of the woodworks like they did the day that your dad died, and they jump in and support you. And those are your real mates. And the mates that Anton talked about that were your groomsmen that stood up at the wedding and how proud they were of you. Like, they're your true mates. They'll be there for you forever. And now they will joke about silly things that you've done, and it becomes something funny to look back on and joke about. But yeah, I think just being honest and asking for help, because that's the first step to recovery, like you said. But yeah, I think a lot of the time when you're going through those situations, when you are in the thickness of addiction, but you don't know that you have that problem, you need to have people there who are willing to be honest with you and who are going to tell you to sort your shit out. And those people are real mates. They're going to be there for you no matter what. So surrounding yourself with good people, I think, is really important.
Find your real ones.
Yeah.
One of the really positive things that I guess you do pour your energy into these days is It's All Gooday, which is a really cool kaupapa. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, first of all, where did the idea come from? Great name, by the way. It's All Gooday. But what's it all about?
It's All Gooday is a mental health sort of advocate for just positive reinforcement, waking up every day, seeing a positive message that will hopefully put you in the right direction from the moment you tie up your shoes to the moment you take them off.
What's the significance of the shoes? Tell us about it. For someone who's never heard, I mean, I know what it is, but for someone who doesn't know anything about It's All Gooday, what's the significance of the shoes?
Okay, so back in my heyday, when I was a little ratbag, we used to go to the festivals up in Gisborne, Rhythm and Vines. When you go to Rhythm and Vines, you get given a wristband. Everyone will know they're the little wristbands that you get, and they've got like a little clip on them. You payment. You put all your money on them, and that's how you pay for stuff. Those little clips, I thought it'd be really cool the following year to put them on my shoes to sort of flex that I'd been there the year before.
Not a Rhythm and Vines virgin. I've been here. My first rodeo.
That was like genuinely like a question that people would ask me. Like, have you been here before? And some people would be like, yeah, this is my 6th year. And you're like, oh my God, you're the man. Like, so it was my 2nd and 3rd year, and I put mine and one of the boys on my shoes. And I thought I was just the coolest dude there. Had them on a pair of Dunlop volleys. I was.
Yeah, you were the coolest.
I was the man. But we then, years later down the track, we took the waka to Rhythm and Alps.
Yep.
Same deal. Wristbands had the payment systems on them. But I noticed on the back of them, they had a really cool little quote. And the first year we went, it said, be good humans.
Nice.
The second year we went, it said, be a tidy Kiwi.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put them on my shoes, but I'm going to have the quote showing. And I just thought it was a really cool little like thing to chuck on my shoes. But I noticed over time, and I hope so, that I was being a better human. But more or less, I found myself like, picking up rubbish randomly, and I'd see the tidy Kiwi thing and think, I'll go and do this or I'll go and do that. And before I knew it, it almost became subconscious. I see so many people walk past a piece of rubbish at work, at Fush, and then I'll walk across from Fush to Joe's and I'll grab that bit of rush and be like, I've seen 20 people walk past this. I'm just going to put it in the bin. And I don't know why it used to piss me off, but it did.
Because you were trying to be a tidy Kiwi.
Exactly. There we are.
You've been influenced by your
and so
your
it
tags.
sort of sparked an idea after all my problems with gambling, addiction, and just being a compulsive liar over the years, to create these little shoe tags that have positive reinforcements on them, so that every day you wake up, you're seeing the same message every day, or you're getting that reinforcement almost subconsciously because it's there and it's always there. And so we've only got 5 tags at the moment, but the 5 that we have is find the positives, embrace the negatives, and always be grateful. And those are like the sort of the front 3 for the whole brand itself. That's like the slogan in a sense. And then we have be a good human. And we also have go one more, which is sort of a motivational thing with my my fitness side of things. Go one more rep, go one more mile, go one more K, whatever it may be.
So when you
go one more.
When you think you've hit the wall, just go one more.
Yeah, the goal with that one is to have that on the All Blacks boots for the next World Cup.
But not go one more bit.
Go one more. Yeah, no, you don't want that on your drinking shirt. No.
Better at the pokies.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But definitely go one more rep, one more mile.
Yeah.
Razor, if you're listening, maybe you can pull some strings.
Yeah, hit us up, bro.
So just for clarity, these little tags, they go on your laces, on your shoes.
Yeah, so they're at the bottom of your shoe.
Well, they're on top of your shoe.
Well, on top of your shoe, but the message can be pointing you, can be pointing away. Yep. But the idea is that every time you tie your shoes up in the morning, you see that message, and over time, it should hopefully subconsciously work.
Influence you.
Yeah, influence you.
And so this is, I mean, it's a business, but it's a business with purpose, right?
Yes, yeah. The goal is to try and bring out more drops of the shoe tags, where every drop, the colour changes, the quotes change, and I really would like to somehow donate it back to some charitable cause. Obviously, it's a startup, so it's very small, to a point where I need to make some money before I can start going, right, I'm going to give half the profits to the Heart Foundation.
You've got to cover your costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's been a lot of setup fees for you as well.
Yeah, so it's just like any business. There's been costs to get it under the woodworks, but it's, I guess, in a sense, been slightly put on the back burner. But I probably should mention as well the fact that I'm not sure exactly, I think it was 2020, I decided at the start of the year that every day I would post something positive, something negative, and something I was grateful for every single day. And I did that for a whole year. And if you go to the Instagram page, you can see all of those posts. I did 365. And trust me, Māia would probably agree, some days I'll be sitting there struggling to find something negative or something I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
But there's always something there.
Yeah. And
I guess that was the lesson learned, is like, although you might be having a really shit day, there's always something that positive or something that you can be grateful for to sort of lift your spirits.
100%. Yeah. And so that Instagram page is, it's All Gooday.
Yep.
It's All Gooday. Yep. We'll throw that up on the screen.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about it would be great to get to a place where you can give something back to the community, but I know you've already done that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess in a sense, I guess you got to give to get a little. So I have donated a lot and sold a lot of them a lot cheaper. They're not super expensive, I'd like to think. But
if someone wanted to go and buy them, first of all, how much do they cost? And where do they go
to
buy
them?
$2
each. So
$2.
If you wanted to put some on your shoes, $4.
Nice.
Yep, you can buy the full set for 15, so you get 10.
Yep.
But yeah, the idea is that I don't want them to be super expensive, because they're going on your shoe. They're not encrusted with diamonds, or they don't need to have this inflated.
The message is the important thing, right?
Yeah, the message and the journey that it'll take you on is where you'll get the most investment, or I will get the most investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. No, it's such a great course.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess for anyone who's looking to support Tom and It's All Gooday, where can they go?
I actually have a website.
Yep.
It's www.itsallgooday.com.
Yep. Itsallgooday.com.
I think it's .co.nz.
Try them both.
You're joking?
Try them both.
Oh, this is all good. Well, Māia set it up for me. She set up the Shopify account, so
try them both. And if you see one that's a shoe
put
tag,
the link in the
somewhere on the screen.
Somewhere on the screen.
No, it's an awesome kaupapa, and I think we should absolutely give it a plug, because I know you've been plugging away at it for years. Yeah. You've got a great purpose, a very selfless kaupapa, and I guess it's a way that people can support mental health awareness.
Yep.
But also get some pretty cool shoe tags and remind themselves every day to be a good human or go one more.
Yeah.
Embrace the positives. Sorry, embrace the negatives.
Embrace the negatives.
Find the positives.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Okay, last thing. You touched on it before, Māia, about becoming parents. Your son, Te Kahukarangi, my nephew. Tell us a little bit about how that's been. What's that journey been like for both of you? We'll start with you, Miss.
It's been really awesome, actually. It's been a really cool journey for us. I think it's funny, like, we laugh about it because I remember those early stages, those newborn stages. I would say to Tom, this is so hard. Like, I'm battling here because you're brand new to it. I've got nieces and nephews, but nothing compares to actually being the parent and I suppose the challenges that you go through. But I remember those newborn stages saying to you, this is so hard, Tom. I'm learning how to breastfeed. I'm learning how to do all these new things that you're trying to learn. And he's not sleeping, or he's sleeping for 6 hours during the day and then 1 hour at night. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you're feeling so exhausted. And I remember saying to you, like, this is so, so hard. And then he is 18 months all of a sudden and he doesn't stop moving and he's running everywhere.
Up the toilet.
Yeah, and he's just like, he's so active.
Headbutting everything.
Yeah, exactly. And then I go, take me back to the newborn stage. It was so easy. But obviously, I love how active he is. I love how cheeky he is. He's a really cool kid. He loves his cousins. Yeah. I think as much as I jokingly complain, oh, he's so busy, I love that he's active and I love that he wants to get outside and play around and run around and do all sorts of things. He's at kohanga now, so he's loving that. He's been there since he turned 1, and yeah, so grateful and so thankful that I was in a position to be able to bring him to work with me for 6 months so that I could spend that first year of his life with him and immerse him in our businesses and our restaurants so that he becomes a baby that's used to being in those environments, and he's respectful of the kaimahi, the staff. He knows how to act in a restaurant, and also just being immersed in our businesses and our whānau businesses, and all the guests knowing him, all the customers knowing him has been really cool. And so, yeah, really grateful that I was in that position. So thank you for that.
I would say, just on that point, one of my biggest fears, and I imagine it's probably the same for the both of you, but definitely you, Maz, because I know you and I cut from the same piece of cloth. One of my biggest fears is that my tamaiti will grow up to be that terrible kid that anyone who's worked in hospital knows the kid. Getting them acclimatized and used to
those early days
behaving in a restaurant or in a cafe is so critical if you come from our background, right? Because you definitely don't want to have the kid who is jumping on the booths, who is yelling, who's throwing things, and who takes a scone and puts 95% of it on the ground in about 1,000 pieces. Like, you don't want to have that kid. Yeah. So it's so important to get them in there early. Teach them the tikanga. This is how you behave.
Yeah, but also equally teaching them how privileged they are and how lucky they are to be able to come to a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And get the food that they get, because there are so many children out there that will never ever step foot into a restaurant. And so finding that gentle balance between realizing how privileged you are to have this opportunity and be able to come into a restaurant every single day and get a fluffy if you want it. But,
marshmallows. Yeah,
but don't you dare go behind the counter and say to the staff, give me a marshmallow, because you will not be coming back here, you know?
The last time that you eat a marshmallow.
That's exactly right. And make sure you always clear your plate before you go. Yep. It's not the staff member's responsibility to clear your table. And so, yeah, I think trying to find that gentle balance, which is very hard to do with an 18-month-old. They don't understand what you're talking about.
But I think, honestly, don't underestimate how those little moments that they do, because before you know it, they'll be 3 or 4 or 5, and that will all be ingrained into them. We've gone through the same stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like yesterday, we were Christmas shopping. We were in Toy World, and they had this lineup of little baby prams, and he kept grabbing them, and I would keep putting it back and say, we're not getting that. Leave it behind, to the point where he grabbed it. I took it off him. He threw it at the window, and I said, Tom,
breathe in.
I'm going to breathe, but we're leaving now. We're not getting the pram.
I think I'd shot to the car at that point, but I did hear the vocals.
Yeah, and you know my face. I have that very calm, I'm about to lose it here, Tom, let's go sort of face.
You need to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's been a really cool journey, and I think it's been huge life changes for us. And then pair that with the fact that you married a Māori woman whose family is pretty passionate about te reo Māori, tikanga Māori, being Māori, and it's always been something that you've been supportive of and embraced and really taken on board, and I'm so grateful to you for that. But when we were coming up with a name for our son, there was never any pushback from you or any debate. When I said to you, I would really love for our son to have a te reo Māori name, how do you feel about that? It was, straight away, I would love that. Absolutely no worries, no qualms. Yeah, exactly. And so we've been working through that as well, and the decision to send him to Kohanga, which for those who don't know is a full immersion te reo Māori speaking preschool, daycare. And there were no questions about that. You said, I would love that. That's something that I would be really happy for Kahu to go to. And so, it's been really cool going through those experiences with you. And I think it's been helpful for you as well to have my mum and Anton's wife, Jess, alongside you as Pākehā who have gone through a similar sort of experience and journey. To be able to sort of piggyback off that and learn from it and talk about it as well. It's been really cool.
How have you found it?
Well, in terms of parenthood?
Anything.
Well, I guess going to becoming a father, obviously the most life-changing thing that can happen to you, but I think it happened at the right time for us. I thought I'd gotten to a point with all my issues I had, they were gone. I didn't have to worry about them.
Really felt like you were on top of them?
Yeah, so when we found out that we were having Kahu, it was kind of, right, this is probably the next step for us. We just bought a house. We'd been in our house for maybe a year or two.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was probably the next step for us. And we were really excited for this stage of our life. Obviously, we didn't know what it was going to be like.
You never did. No one does.
Yeah, 100%. I think the hardest thing for me was I'm such a routine-based person, so I was used to getting up and I'd start work at Fush at 11:30 and I would go to the gym at 9 o'clock. And I got a very massive shock to the system when I learned early on that wasn't going to happen. My life had changed forever. I wasn't able to just go to the gym when I pleased, and it went from, I was still playing cricket at the time, but I had to find ways around. The morning was dedicated to Kahu, so I think at that time when he was first born, it was train very early in the morning, so 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and have all my training done by 7 a.m. so that when Māia and Kahu were awake, I'd got all of that stuff out of the way and I could focus on being a dad and getting ready for the day. And I think that really was like the counterbalance to my addictive personality taking over, finding a solution to the problem.
Yep.
And I think that really helped us in that sense,
Yeah, and I think you playing cricket for that first year of his life was actually fine because he wasn't moving. He would sit in a pram for the whole cricket game and then he'd come out and he'd sit on the floor, and he wasn't as active as he is now. And so I would quite happily go to those games and I would watch it and it would be awesome and it would be really relaxing. And then this year you sort of said, I feel like I'm missing out on quite a lot because you were working those hours at Fush, which were nighttime, so you wouldn't see him at night, and then you'd train twice a week and have a game on Saturday. So you barely saw him in those weeks, and there was never, I don't think, pushback from me, but it was more you saying, I feel like I'm missing out on a lot here.
Yeah.
What do you think about me taking some time off cricket?
Yeah.
And I said, I know how much you love cricket.
Yeah.
So if you want to, I will support you, absolutely, but do not think that this is coming from me. I don't want to push you to do this. And you said, no, this is what I need to do for our whānau, to spend more time together. And I think you've even had a couple call-ups this season, asking, but you've been working.
Which has been really tough to say no to because obviously how I am.
And you love it.
Yeah, but I just, as you said, I felt like I missed those sort of the first crawl or that first word or murmur or whatever he was saying, or just those little things I'd seen him through a video as opposed to actually being there. And so the last sort of, I want to say 8 to 12 months has been really cool because I've been able to pick him up from Kohanga, go home with him, and we're like running around the backyards together.
We just change our routines, eh? You just make it work, and you start at, excuse me, you start at 4 a.m. now.
Yeah.
And so I do the mornings, just me and Kahu.
Yep.
And then you do the pickups. And so that means that we work really well together in that you can pick him up when you finish work at 3 o'clock and you go home, you do whatever you need to do. And I can, if I need to be, I can be at work until 10 p.m. I can go work in the waka or whatever because that's what we just help each other out where we need to. And so it works, really well. Hats off to all the single mum and dads out there that do it. It's They're superhumans.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just make it work, eh? And there's no playbook.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a nice place to leave it. We've talked about a lot today. I just want to, I guess, first of all, thank you both for being so open and honest. I think what you both have managed to deal with and overcome and not put it behind you, like it will always be there, but the fact that you've overcome so much, gone through the loss of your dad, you've talked about your mental health and your addiction to gambling, and the fact that you've overcome all of that together as a couple is pretty admirable. So, yeah, and look, I love where we're at as a whānau at the moment, working together. The airport, having you manage the airport, Tom, has been fantastic. Never worry about it because I know it's in good hands. So, yeah, thank you both for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Any closing whakaaro, ideas, thoughts that you want to share before we wrap this episode up? We'll have to have you back because there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think in terms of sort of the kaupapa or the journey that I had been on, one thing that I thought about today was if you've got some shit going on in your life where you're really struggling with something, one thing I really liked when I went to therapy was my therapist told me to almost wear it as a badge of honor. If you've got shit going on, own it and just get on with it. And yeah,
Don't be ashamed.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got a problem and you're willing to be open about it, wear it as a badge of honor because we've all got issues.
That's also one way of showing that you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that you should be proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, that's great.
Putting it out there also gives you that when something's out in the open, you can't hide away from it.
Yeah.
People are going to ask you about it. They're going to
100%.
ask how you're going. And if you say, oh, I've only gambled twice this week, it's, come on. You're battling something, you need to stop. And then people are there to help you. Same sort of thing with weight loss when you're going through that and you go, like someone says you're eating a chocolate bar and they go, I thought you were on a weight loss journey. And you go, oh, fair enough. You called me out for it.
That's
So
so true.
it's a good to
When
put
you-
it out there.
Yeah, when you let other people know about it, they hold you
They hold
accountable.
you to
eh?
account,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. It's like running. If you're going to go for a run,
Yeah.
you run in public places because you can't stop
Yeah.
when you're on a busy street. Whereas if it's like middle of the night on a quiet street,
On the cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac, it's so much easier just to stop and have a breather. Oh, that's so true. Awesome. All right, guys.
Moral of the story.
Always run down the main street during daylight hours and tell people about your issues because they'll hold you accountable.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate you both. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us, and thank you very much to everyone for tuning in. Until next time,
Thanks for
have an
having
awesome
us.
day. Ngā mihi. That stopped.